What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gooner, a channel dedicated to Arsenal Football Club, who are, as we all know, by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. And, well, still buzzing after Saturday's last gasp winner by Reiss Nelson to hand us the 3 points against Bournemouth. It's all anybody's been talking about as far as I can see. It's been an absolute joy watching all the clips of people celebrating all over the world. Mikel Arteta high-fiving a child before realising it probably shouldn't be there. It was just a moment that we will all savour, I'm sure, as long as we all live, and one of the truly great moments in football. Now, on that subject, brings us to the first bit of news from today. The FA apparently will be launching an investigation into Arsenal's celebrations. Chris Kavanagh, the referee, has mentioned it in his match report, and what it actually means, I don't know. I mean, what kind of investigation do you launch? I think this is a pretty open and shut case. We definitely did celebrate, and if you don't understand why there was such exuberance and over-celebration in that moment, then you probably don't get football at all, which wouldn't surprise me with the FA. I'm a little frustrated by this because there was no mention in the same report of the encroachment for the kickoff. I don't think it made a massive difference, but rules are rules and they're there to be kept. Referee could at least make sure that all their players are in their half before they kick off. Nor did anybody seem to notice or mention that Neto, the Bournemouth keeper, punched Ben White, and there's a clip of him doing that here. I've slowed it down a little bit. Now, look, I'm not saying it was a major incident, but I also don't think it's legal and should be investigated, particularly as Neto was on a yellow card at that time anyway. Also, look, this is not me trying to sour grapes at all. I didn't think that Chris Kavanagh had a bad game at all. He missed a couple of things. That's fair enough. VAR, 4 or 5 decisions and not one of them went in our favour. It's a little bit challenging to take given the history we've had with VAR this season. I don't necessarily think he had a bad game. I do wonder what that investigation is going to look like. Perhaps we just pretend we didn't do it and that'll all blow over. On the subject of Reiss Nelson, it's been reported that the club have entered into contract negotiations with him, and I think that has got to be the least we can do, hasn't it? Mikel Arteta, actually speaking on Arsenal.com on the 5th of October, actually said that he felt that Reiss Nelson was a very good player who'd come on leaps and bounds and had potential to be a great player. So I think that this is something that was probably going to happen anyway, but at the start of the season, Reiss Nelson picked up an injury, didn't really recover in time to get back in before the World Cup, but in the immediate aftermath of the World Cup with the friendlies we were playing, he was playing really well before picking up an injury to Juventus, which has kept him out until recently. What a way to come back from injury, and what a fantastic story it is. I thought his celebration was amazing, More than that, I think we can all agree that his involvement in the game was outstanding, setting up Ben White's goal. He actually crossed the ball to Odegaard, who didn't make the most of what was could have been a fantastic assist. I thought that typified Odegaard's game. I think he had 11 shots in the end. And, some days it goes for you, some days it doesn't. I don't think you could fault his effort, but I think the pressure was just getting to him. He was passing when he could have been shooting and shooting when he could have been passing. We all have days like that in anything we do. Reiss Nelson, though, cool as a cucumber when the ball comes over from a corner that Zinchenko had won, comes out to him. Not only does he chest it down, but he chests it down onto his right foot before scooping up to his left foot and hitting the sweetest shot he's ever going to hit in his career from his apparently weakest foot. I salute you. I hope that, since it's not my money anyway, I'd pay him whatever he wants, give him a 10-year contract and then a job giving people tours around the stadium. I just really want it to work out for Reiss Nelson. And I'm really hopeful that he will sign this contract. He's obviously in love with the club. And so good news on that front. Now, I know I don't really talk about transfers a great deal on this channel at the moment. Very good reason for that is, well, the transfer window is closed, and I think we've got more than enough to be excited about at the moment without talking about prospective players coming in. That said, the Declan Rice grows every day. It really does look like Declan Rice is headed towards Arsenal, which would be a fantastic signing. Reports today that Caicedo is being chased by other teams, particularly Manchester United. So I don't know if there's any likelihood that that will happen. But also in today's news, Asensio, Real Madrid, who's apparently looking to move to Arsenal. João Felix, whose time at Chelsea has hardly been what he would have hoped for. He's looking to move to Arsenal in the summer. And it's usually the players you're not particularly excited about that really set the world on fire. So whether that's a Ramsdale, who I think hardly any of us wanted to sign, or a Ben White, who, I think a lot of us were sceptical about, Tomiyasu, who I'd never heard of. I almost hope that we don't sign any of these players that are being talked about at the moment. But Asensio today in a lot of reports saying that he obviously is leaving Real Madrid in the summer and would love to come and play for Arsenal. Of course he would. Why wouldn't you? I'm not sure how much there is in that. That feels to me like a bit of hype from his agent trying to stimulate some activity for him. João Felix, currently on loan at Chelsea, has apparently decided that that was a mistake. Hardly been prolific, scored 1 goal, and I think he's only played in 1 win so far at Chelsea. Certainly not worked out the way he'd expected. And there's talk about him wanting to join Arsenal in the summer as well. I don't know if we need that kind of striker. We certainly have Jesus. It's hard for me to see one of those players, coming in and fitting in ahead of Jesus straight away. I'm not ruling it out. And obviously teams do need to upgrade, and we are playing in the Champions League next season. That's all but secured. So I can understand why it might be a priority for us to go out and get a striker. That said, Eddie Enquiry reports came out today that he had been carrying an injury for quite a while, which would explain the loss of form that has led to him being benched. And now he's obviously carrying a foot injury, which will see him almost certainly not being able to play at Sporting on Thursday. There is also Folarin Balogun, who, although he's not top scorer in Ligue 1 anymore, he has fallen behind to Mbappe, and he's going to come back. So we do have options, and I do think that the Asensio and João Felix is the kind of thing that happens in the in between transfer windows where people hype up potential transfers. I think it's a little bit like talking about what you're going to have for dinner at lunch. I don't think we need to be doing too much of that, but I will stop here to say that Declan Rice, the likelihood of him joining Arsenal seems to grow every single day. And that's certainly one that would make a lot of sense to both parties, I think. Declan Rice was an opportunity to stay in London, and he's always talked about wanting to play in the Champions League. He's certainly a player that on the surface of it would fit very well into our system. I'm kind of hopeful about that one, but we'll know nearer the time. Apparently, the contract has been agreed, and that is definitely happening. Now, lineups in terms of really good news for the Sporting is that Gabi Jesus will be joining the squad to fly to Lisbon for Thursday's match. Now, he was seen after the game at the Emirates, where fans apparently stayed 30 minutes after the final whistle, which is fantastic to see. And he was training and having a kickabout with the squad. Arteta has said that he has been involved in the squad, but in a no-contact basis, which I think sounds like it makes sense for Gabi Jesus anyway. And there is a lot of confidence that he could play some part in that game away to Sporting. Perhaps the game to Fulham is nearer. I'll be really lucky if it was that, because that's what I predicted some time ago. But it's unlikely that he's going to get full match involvement until the international break, which on the one hand could be really great for us because it gives us a chance to refresh and renew our energy. And on the other hand, who knows? If he goes away with Brazil and gets another injury. Other news for that is Eddie Nketiah is still not fit. Trossard's groin strain, it appears that he picked up a groin strain, which may or may not mean that he's out for a couple of weeks. There's still no tangible news on that, but I'll break it as soon as But I'm really keen to get your thoughts on the coming game away to Sporting Lisbon in the Europa League. Who you would play, what kind of lineup you would put out there. Do we play as close to a full strength team as possible? Pros and cons here, obviously. Well, the most obvious con is what happened when we dropped 6 players for the game at Man City. Whether or not that directly resulted in the dip in form that we had after that is questionable to me. But I have seen a lot of people arguing that it makes a difference if you don't play a full strength team. The Against Column, I think against playing a lot of first-team players in that game, look, we have to play Fulham. And as we saw against Bournemouth, there are no easy games in this league. And certainly ask a Manchester United fan who thought that they might get something out of Anfield. There are teams out there that are not just banana skins, and Fulham have been playing well above anybody's expectations and cannot be taken lightly as an away fixture. We then have the home game to Palace. So on the surface of things, we are going to need players fit for both of those before we go into the international break. And I think the reality is that the Europa League, if there's any chance that being involved in the Europa League is going to cause any kind of harm to our title challenge, then I want out of it. And I say that whilst acknowledging that if we don't win it or get close to winning it this year, we may not be playing in it for a while, or at least I hope we won't be. So as our last chance to win it, perhaps we should take it more seriously. I did a video about Tin Pot trophies. I don't believe there is such a thing. You always want to win every trophy you're involved in, and the Europa League is no different. I just feel that we are in an absolutely fantastic position to make a title challenge. These kind of challenges do not come along very often, and anything we can do, it makes sense. That also, and I will add this, in terms of the team that we might put out against Sporting Lisbon, it's not necessarily a bad idea to put out our second string team. So if you looked at it, certainly Matt Turner deserves a go in goal. He's always looked solid whenever he's come in. Right back, you could easily make a case for Tomiyasu getting more game time. He's had a tough time. He was hooked at half-time against Bournemouth, wasn't playing particularly well, but last season arguably one of our better players. So good to see him getting some game time just to work through it. On the left, I think we all want to see Kieran Tierney get more minutes, and this would seem to be the obvious chance for him to do that. Centre-back pairing, well, we spent over 20 million on Kivior from Spezia, where he played almost every game up until transfer in January. There have been some mumblings from him, seemingly from him, saying that he'd been hoping to get more game time. I'm not sure how realistic that expectation was, given how well Saliba and Gabriel are doing as a centre-back pairing and the fact that we're out of the Cups. But this would seem to be a good opportunity for him to play, possibly ahead of Rob Holding. But we also have Rob Holding that can play as centre-back, and he probably needs some minutes, and I'd love to see him get some game time in case we need him further in the season. There is this obvious need to rotate players. You can't just bring them on if there's an injury without any game time at all. In the midfield, a lot of people getting on Vieira's back. I don't think he gives us the stability that Granit Xhaka does, but Granit Xhaka's looked tired, and I personally can't criticise Mikel Arteta for dropping him against Bournemouth. It looked like a sensible move to me. So unlikely, I think, that Granit Xhaka will play against Sporting, but you could certainly make a case for Emile Smith-Rowe, who's kind of being groomed apparently to play in that position going forward. So Vieira, obviously now with injuries that we have to Trossard, it's likely that if Emile Smith-Rowe plays, he'll play on the left. Be fantastic to see Reece Nelson play on the right. And in terms of the front players, well, what's left of them, Martinelli could play up front through the middle. We're precious. We're really running out of options. But if we played that second string team and we got annihilated, I don't think anyone would be too disappointed about it. We still have the second leg to put all our first team players on, as long as we can. We still have the second leg to try and win that back. I'd love to hear what you think, though. Thoughts on the players that you think will be lining up. And finally, Gary Neville. Just Gary Neville. What on earth is wrong with him? And just before we go, I want to say a massive happy birthday to the Romford Pele, Ray Parleirinho. Who can forget his goal to win us the FA Cup in 2002, and particularly Tim Lovejoy's commentary of it? It's only Ray Parler. What a player. What a fantastic servant to Arsenal Football Club, and what a period he played through. The end of the George Graham era into the Arsene Wenger era, and right up into the Invincibles. I hope you're enjoying your birthday somewhere, not too raucously, but a massive fan of yours, and I always will be. So happy birthday, Ray Parler. That's been everything.